Allegiance to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the clerk conduct a roll call, please?
Heidi,
Here.
Blinker.
Here.
Nargi.
Here.
Reynolds. Brown.
Here.
Allersmeyer. Williamson.
Here.
Downey.
Here.
Campbell.
Here.
Quorum present.
I would entertain a motion to recess for the purpose of a public hearing. Mr. Heidi?
I move to recess for a public hearing on Resolution 2016-18.
Mr. Clinker?
Second.
For the information, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Resolution 2016-18, a resolution approving a waiver of noncompliance and finding compliance with Statement of Benefits, James Investments, LLC, DBA, Lafayette Auto Supply.
Are there any comments from the public concerning this resolution? There being none, Mr. Heidi?
I move to reconvene.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Clinker, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I guess we didn't do that to start. Approval of the minutes.
I move for the approval of the minutes as communicated.
Thank you, Mr. Downing.
Second.
Are there any corrections to those minutes? There being none, would the clerk then conduct a roll call vote on the minutes of that September 6th meeting?
Heidi.
Aye.
Clinker.
Aye.
Nargi.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Williamson.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Minutes
Thank
approved.
you.
Thank you.
Presentation and disposal of claims.
There are none.
Presentation of petitions and communications.
There are none.
Reports of this on file in the city clerk's office.
Fleet Maintenance monthly August, Water Pollution Control Department monthly August, and Waterworks Department monthly August.
Anyone wishing to examine those reports, they are available in the clerk's office during regular hours of the city offices. Ordinances for second reading.
Ordinance 2016-28, an ordinance to amend ordinance 2015-26, and ordinance fixing the salaries of the sworn protective occupation and law enforcement poll members of the police and fire departments of the city of Lafayette, Indiana for the year 2016.
What is the pleasure, Mr. Brown?
Mr. President, I move that we hear and approve ordinance 2016-15.
I second it. I second.
Yes, ma'am. Any comments by members of the Common Council? There being none, Mayor?
Definition of, I must have misheard. You said 2016
15.
28.
28.
28?
yeah. Make sure we
Second
get it right.
reading.
Yeah, it's the second reading.
We all, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Mr. President, thank you. It's up for second reading, as we discussed previously now several times. This just amends this ordinance, which allows us to up the one of the specialty pays in the fire department from $250 to $500 as part of their contract agreement that was negotiated in 2016.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions of the mayor concerning this particular ordinance? There being none, anyone in the audience wish to make comments about the ordinance? There being none, I'll return back to the council. Any final comments? Would the clerk then conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2016-28?
Heidi.
Aye.
Clinker.
Aye.
Nargi.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Williamson.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 6-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 2016-29.
An amendment to ordinance 2010-11, establishing a local Lingle Heights 535 South 7th Street Historic District in the city of Lafayette, Indiana.
What's the pleasure of the council? Mr. Downing?
I move to approve 2016-29.
Ms. Nargi?
I second it.
Comments by members of the Common Council? Yes, sir.
Good evening. John Collier, Assistant Director for Economic Development. I'm here representing the Historic Preservation Commission and requesting your approval of two amendments to Ordinance 2010-11 to establish two new local historic districts, and I'll address them separately. The first is a petition from the property owner at 535 South 7th Street in Lingle Heights area. As with the previous recent requests, this property owner is opting in voluntarily to have the property established as the local Lingle Heights 535 South 7th Street Historic District, and we'd appreciate your support. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Any questions of this gentleman? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments from members of the audience? There being none, would the clerk then conduct, unless the city council has any additional comments, would the clerk then conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2016-29?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 6-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 2016-30.
An amendment to ordinance 2010-11 establishing a local Lingle Heights 512 South 7 Historic District in the city of Lafayette, Indiana.
Mr. Clinker?
I move we hear ordinance 2016-30.
Mr. Heidi?
Second.
Any comments by members of the common council? There being none? Yes, sir.
Okay, John Collier again. This is another opt-in voluntary petition from the property owner at 512 South 7th Street to have the property established as the local Lingle Heights 512 South 7th Street Historic District. Again, I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions of this gentleman? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the audience, do you wish to address this ordinance? There being none, once again, the council, any final comments? Would the clerk then please conduct a roll call?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 6-0.
Thank you. Ordinances for first reading, ordinance 2016-31.
The 2017 GLPTC budget and ordinance appropriating money for the Greater Lafayette Public Transportation Corporation as required pursuant to Indiana Code 6-1.1-17-20. Hey, Marty?
Mrs. Williamson?
I move that we hear and approve ordinance 2016-31.
Mr. Brown?
Second.
Any comments by members of the common council? There being none, yes, sir.
Marty Senate, General Manager, City Bus. One of the things I'd like to point out is that this budget does contain money to continue the route out to IU Hospital. We started that, I think, the first day at Purdue, I think it was August 22nd. Or something very close to that. The other, so that's why some of the amounts in our budget are a little bit higher, but it's a 4.8% increase in our budget, mostly due to the extended addition of the route that has two buses on it for 30-minute service. And at this point, that's probably the highlight of what we have in our budget. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
That's the same route that goes past Workforce One also, right? Is that the-
Yes, it serves the Cascada area, and there's a lot of the Lafayette Rehab hospitals out there. There's
Cascada, all that,
something Springs.
yeah, Sycamore Springs. or-
Sycamore Springs, thank you. So there's a lot of medical offices going in there, and basically that's why we operate it Monday through Friday. Not a lot of doctors work on Saturday and Sunday. Kind of like the legal profession.
You mentioned 30 minutes, every 30 minutes. What time does that start and what time does it end?
I believe, off the top of my head, Councilman, it's around, I think the first one's out at 7:15 in the morning. And then the last one, trip leaves, I believe, at 5:45 in the evening. I'll double check on it. Does that sound right, John? Am I pretty close? Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I hate to reference my memory at this age. Not that you guys and ladies are old as I am.
Any questions for this gentleman? Thank you very much, Mr. Senator. Any comments or questions by members of the audience? There being none, once again, the council, any questions, final comments? There being none, would the clerk then conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2016-31?
Heidi?
Aye.
Blinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 6-0.
Thank you. Ordinances 2016-32.
An ordinance fixing the salaries of appointed officers and employees of the City of Lafayette, Indiana for the year 2017, excluding the sworn protective occupation and law enforcement members of the police and fire departments.
What's the pleasure of the council? Mr. Downing?
I move to approve ordinance 2016-32.
Mr. Brown?
Second.
Discussion by members of the common council. Yes, sir.
Mr. President, Mike Jones, Controller. Just a few comments before we get into the budget. I wanted to mention, again, like I always do, we take a look and try to do a zero-based budgeting process where we look at every position and are there going to be retirements or what have you, and work through that process. We're still much in the midst of that, but a couple of items on the revenue side. Our growth quotient this year is 3.8%. Now, the growth quotient is the amount that the property tax base can grow, and it is a number that is compiled from the last 6 years of non-farm income, the average of that, and that 3.8% represents the highest in the 10 budgets that I've brought before this group in the past. So it's good news for a change, not all doom and gloom. Our non-property tax growth this year, for instance, in the general fund is 4.58% up. That's driven by an 11.5% growth in our county option income tax, which is directly related to the economic development that you obviously support with your votes and such. So those are very, very good numbers to come up with. We have a budget right now that overall is sitting at $63,054,106, which is a $4,318,676 increase from last year. The bulk of this is sitting in salaries, as always. A little over 66% of our budget is based on that. And we do have, the mayor had charged the HR department with doing a little market analysis on our salary structures relating to department heads and such, and that has happened, and we've done what we can. We didn't match the market analysis, but we have raised those folks that were drastically below the rate, and that would include in the parks some the assistant zoo director, the head zookeeper, and the zookeepers that are there. It also includes the department heads, and we will have to cut this budget a bit because we do have some unknowns yet. The circuit breaker estimate we got from the DLGF, I believe, is high, and but it's still a circuit breaker and it's still a factor. We do need to work through that and pare that estimate down. I had budgeted 11.5% in the health insurance line. We now know that it's going to be a single-digit increase, so there will be some savings there. And in gasoline, due to our participation in the Indiana Bond Bank hedge fund, which again, you certainly give us the opportunity to do that. Fuel will be at worst neutral, and we may find some savings there as well. So we will be cutting this budget. Most of it is in salary expense, but we think at the end of the day, we will definitely have, as always, a budget that is balanced and will work for the citizens of Lafayette.
Could you tell me how the state arrives at a growth quotient?
They take the Department of Labor statistics, and they take that average over the last 6 years and look at the non-farm income increase, and they base it off of that. Last year it was 2.6%, but because it's a 6-year average, we had a really bad year. I think 2009 finally dropped off, which was, I think, a -6% year, so in the height of the recession.
So this takes into consideration the growth of the city, the physical buildings and things of that sort.
Actually, it's not the assessed value, Mr. Campbell. It is the income of the wages of the folks in the state of Indiana. I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
Any questions of Mr. Jones? Thank you. Any questions by members of the audience? There being none, we'll come back to the council once more. Any closing comments? There being none, would the clerk then conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2016-32?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 6-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 2016-33.
An ordinance fixing the salaries of the sworn protective occupation and law enforcement poll members of the police and fire departments of the city of Lafayette, Indiana for the year 2017.
Mr. Heidi?
Move to hear ordinance number 2016-33.
Mr. Clinker?
Second.
Any questions or comments before the mayor presents his portion? Thank you. Go ahead, Mayor.
Mr. Campbell, ladies and gentlemen of the council, I'd like to just echo a couple of Mike Jones's comments and thank his office and all the department heads in this council. As Mike said, the growth quotient portion of the budget's set by the state. It's all we can grow in that certain area. But because of the work of the council and the department head and the growth that the community has had, other income and revenue sources certainly have continued to grow and have placed us in a much more favorable position than maybe many times that we've been when we've come before the council. And certainly those first couple years that we were all in office here together, and then with the recession, we had to make some very difficult choices. But because we've made those choices, we've worked hard to be fiscally responsible, but we've also had a pro-growth policy, pro-infrastructure policy, pro-policy of parks and recreation and quality of life and quality of place. We've been able to grow and to do those things that have helped put us on very sound financial footing. And so I want to thank each and every one of you as we've worked through with our local businesses and industry through all the different processes that we've had that helped us continue to grow. And we're actually in that growth mode and not a retraction mode, which we know is not where we want to be. This particular ordinance here sets the salaries for our police and firefighters here in our community that you know perform a very important and a very dangerous task for us. There is no doubt that we also are aware that it's a very competitive time in law enforcement and even the fire service on getting people to apply for those positions that we have. We have made a commitment here within both of those agencies that we will not under any circumstances, alter our hiring requirements. We will not settle for people that we do not feel meet all of our standards to be a police officer or a firefighter in this community, and we think that's critically important. And with that being said, we also want to reward those that are doing the job for us and doing it very well. We are very fortunate to have great leadership in both of those agencies and have some of the finest police and fire departments anywhere in the United States. The raise for our firefighters and our police officers this year will be right at 5.1%. That will get a first-class patrol officer and a journeyman fireman after they reach those designations to just slightly over $60,000 a year for those positions. We think that keeps us very competitive in the state of Indiana, certainly not the highest, but certainly not towards the bottom, but more towards that upper tier where we want to be. One of the ways that we were able to do that this year, as you know, an analysis was done by Price Waterhouse on the police and fire pensions in Indianapolis through a PERF. and those pensions are fully funded. In fact, there may even be a little bit overfunded. And so we were given a memo from the DLGF, State Board of Accounts, that the contribution that the city will have to make into those funds will decrease this year. And because of that decrease that we would have been paying in to those pensions without dipping, I guess, into what you'd call this new money that we have received, we're able to take those existing funds that we've been paying and actually add that into our police and firefighters' salary. So I guess in a way, it's kind of the same money, but it's going into their salary instead of the pension system, because the pension system's fully funded, and the state said they don't need as much money from us right now for that. And we think that's very important that that money goes back into those police and firefighters' salaries, to thank them for the job that they've done, but also to keep us competitive as we work very hard to recruit new police officers and firefighters to the community. So again, that raise equals out to about 5.1% and would put a journeyman fireman and a first-class patrolman right at that $60,000 mark. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the mayor? No. There being none, thank you, Mayor. Members of the audience wish to address this particular ordinance. There being no comments, once again, council, nothing. Would the clerk then conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2016-33?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 6-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 2016-34.
An ordinance fixing the salaries of elected officials of the city of Lafayette, Indiana for the year 2017.
What's the pleasure, Ms. Brown?
Now that I pulled up the right agenda, Mr. President,
Almost gave you another one, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
I move that we hear and approve ordinance 2016-34.
Thank you, Ms. Nargi.
I second it.
Comments by members of the Common Council? There being none, yes, sir, Mr. Jones.
Yes, Mr. Campbell, council members, as I mentioned previously, the budget is sitting at, I should have said 3% for most of the folks, but we did have some special exceptions. We do have council getting a 3% raise in this budget, and two of the folks that we wanted to target were the two full-time elected officials. Over the course of the years, the mayor and Cindy have not taken raises, much like you haven't, but in 2007, 2010, 2011, and 2012, we again redid the salary study, and we have a salary grid, and to keep everybody in this grid at the same percentages, we felt that we wanted to add a raise for the mayor and for Cindy, and get them back in line with that salary grid. And in this case, this one comes out to about 5.5%.
Any questions of Mr. Jones? Thank you, Mr. Jones. Anybody in the audience wish to address this salary increase? Once again, the council. Clerk conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2016-34.
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Brown?
No.
Downing?
Yes.
Sorry, Williamson?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance passes 5-1.
Thank you. Ordinance 2016-35.
2017 budget ordinance, an ordinance appropriating money for the purpose of defraying expenses of several departments of the city of government of the city of Lafayette, Indiana for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2017 and ending December 31st, 2017, including the outstanding claims and obligations and fixing a time when the same shall take effect.
What's the pleasure of the council? Ms. Williamson?
I move for passage of ordinance 2016-35.
Mr. Brown?
Second.
Comments by members of the Common Council? Hearing none, Mayor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the council, you have the full budget before you this evening for first vote. As Mr. Jones went through with you earlier, he discussed some of our revenue opportunities and some of our large budgeting areas, but I would like to just go over some of those again, and then we'll kind of work through it. As you know, as we've heard, about 66% of all of our budget is personnel. It's people, and people really make the city, whether it's the people that we serve or the people that work for the City of Lafayette team. Everything from salaries to pensions to health care to disability to Social Security, all of those things that go into that salary line item, that personnel line item, does represent about 66% of this overall budget. And, we'd like to think that this year, in particular, we've been able to reflect in this budget our commitment to our Lafayette team here. We certainly didn't get all of it done. There are still things that we'd like to do and still position analysis we'd like to complete next year, but we are being responsible, and we are doing this in a way that we think makes the most fiscal sense. We also, I think your budget reflects, what do we see as our mission here within the City of Lafayette. Obviously, city services are incredibly important to all of us. I take my hats off to the street and sanitation department. We have a wonderful sanitation department, recycling department. We pick up leaves, limbs, large items every week. They do a super job with that. And we're still one of the few communities, and probably in Indiana, probably in the United States, that don't charge an extra monthly fee for any of that trash or recycling pickup. We do that all within our operating budgets. We look at our parks department. We have tremendous park facilities, trails, all the things that we think promote quality of life, sense of place. And obviously, our police and fire departments are extremely well funded. I'm sure you've had a chance to look through the budget, but if you look through it, you will see that we fund our police and fire departments very well. When you look at the equipment, the new fire trucks that we have obtained, the officers that we've added in years past, to the police department, the take-home car program that we instituted for those officers that live inside the city limits to try to encourage that. We continue to make public safety an absolute priority, and this budget certainly reflects that. Although the utilities aren't included in this, I'd like to take my hats off to the water and wastewater plants. We are continually doing upgrades to our infrastructure. You look at local roads and streets and the work that our engineering department is doing to continue to improve that amount of infrastructure. We really are a growing community that has plans for the future, and I think we're doing things right now that continue to position us very well for decades and generations to come. And I think that's exactly what this budget does. As you remember earlier in the year, we moved some money to the rainy day fund to continue to build that, and we're going to continue to do that. We also have cash balances in our operating funds. My hat goes off again to the Controller's office, to our Controller Mike Jones, to our Deputy Controller Tim Clary, and their staff. They have done a tremendous job working with our department heads year after year through good times and lean times as we put these budgets together, reflect the priorities that we think our citizens and our taxpayers want for our community, and get those projects done. I mean, we really are a community that we do things here. We get things done, and we continue to look to the future, and I think that's why we've created such a strong business climate. We continue to have expansions at our local businesses or land new businesses like the GE Jet Aviation Facility and all those things that make us a strong community. We have a good commitment to education here, workforce development, working with Greater Lafayette Commerce. My hat goes off to Marty Sennett and his staff at City Bus. They do a great job with public transportation. And so when you look at all those things, from infrastructure to job creation to our education system to parks and trails and bicycle plans and trail master plans and all the things we're doing downtown, the improvements that you see to the Long Center, to the parking garage, to Reilly Plaza, landing the Mark, the new $25 million downtown, and working with the Wabash River Enhancement Corporation for the new promenade that will be started yet this year. We really are a community on the move, and I think this budget reflects that. As Mike said, we will need to cut some of it before it's over, probably about $1.5 million out of it, but we're going to get some automatic savings. We did get a better insurance number than we originally budgeted for, certainly belonging to the IACT Medical Trust and buying our insurance with about 35 other Indiana cities now in a pooling method certainly helps control our rates. It's great when you can keep, because you know what medical trend is. Medical trend is double digits every year, and we're able, most years now, to keep our insurance increases in single digits below medical trend, and I think that's very important for us. So certainly all of those things, and from the council approving us hedging our fuel with the Indiana bond bag, the joint purchasing board where we purchase things with Tippecanoe County, asphalt, limestone, gravel, soils, all of those things that we jointly purchase with Tippecanoe County to save money. There is a lot of good things taking place. But at the end of the day, this council is a fiscal body for the city of Lafayette, and so I'd like to take this moment to personally thank each and every one of you for being a partner in this journey on helping keep our community progressive, giving that oversight to our budgets that we need, the input that we value to help make these decisions that guide our course throughout the year. You play a tremendous role in that, and I want to personally thank you. Cindy, I want to thank you as a tremendous partner with the city clerk. Ed, this is a great time to thank you and your legal staff. Without your advice and guidance, we wouldn't be here today. So thank you very much for what you do. And I think this budget reflects all of that, and that's how we look at that as we put it together. So I'd appreciate your approval on it tonight. We will have to pare it down before the final vote, which we will, but we are in a very strong position, and a lot of it has to do with everybody, part of the Lafayette team, each and every one of you that's helped get us to this point this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions of the mayor?
Just one. Mr. Mayor, actually two. How much is in our rainy day fund, and how hard does it have to be coming down before we have to spend any of it?
Well, we have about $3.8 million in the rainy day fund right now. We probably have about $1.5 million of edit, unbudgeted edit in a fund that could be used for a rainy day. We do have cash balances in our operating funds. We would like to get that rainy day fund up to slightly over the $5 million range. It's still not quite where we want it to be yet, but we're doing it in a responsible way, right? It doesn't do you any good to have so much in reserve or your rainy day fund that your roads are crumbling or you're not taking care of your infrastructure, taking care of your people that are out serving your citizens. But you also want to have a responsible amount in there, and I think we've done a good job at putting a plan together that does both of those, spends that money where it needs to be spent to provide services, safety, and growth to our community, at the same time being physically responsible and building towards those reserves that we'd really like to have. And I think a great example of that is when we got ready to do, and I don't want to give it all away because we've still got to, do we have to do anything else yet with the refunding of the revenue bonds?
Tomorrow it closes.
Okay.
Tomorrow it closes, and yeah, I mean, I
The
think.
council doesn't take any other action, right?
No other
Okay.
action, you can go ahead
I
and.
can go ahead and tell you. So I think this speaks volumes. Several months ago, we came to this council, Mike Bowles and I myself, at the direction of the city attorney, working with our bond counsel and our financial advisors, and said, hey, we need to refinance some sewage revenue bonds. We can't do it for several months, but we need you to trust us, right? We need to get the votes through now so we can do all the planning, we can have everything in place so that right when we can sell those, we can sell them at the right time to generate savings. So we were refinancing about $18 million worth of sewage revenue bonds. Because of the strong financial position of the city, we had $78 million of interest, of competitive interest, of bidders on that $18 million, which meant we got an interest rate at about 1.59. So we told you we'd save about $1.4 million, $1.5 million. We actually are saving over $2 million because we even got a rate better than we thought we'd get. So we appreciate your confidence in us and allowing us to do that. But because of this council and the work we've done, that's the kind of things we can do. But we know as the general fund continues to grow, and we want to continue that and strengthen that, we still do need to keep adding to those reserves and those rainy day funds in a responsible way. But the fiscal responsibility that the city has shown and this council has shown is really starting to pay off for us. $2 million savings on an $18 million bond is a lot of money. That's a really great ratio for us. So it worked out very well. Worked out even better than we told you it would work out.
Good.
So,
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, how many employees does this city have?
about 565 full-time. Okay, maybe 575.
Thank you.
At any given time. Then over the summer, when we hire everybody, we're up to around 800 with just the seasonal folks.
Is there money in the park fund to repair picnic tables?
Yes.
Did you break one?
No.
Mr. Jones did.
Oh, okay.
That wasn't his fault.
There's an inspection.
Any comments or questions by members of the audience? There being none, once again, the Common Council. Then would the clerk please conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2017-35?
16.
2016.
16.
Excuse me.
Okay. Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 6-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 2016-36. Would you want to place that? on-
Yeah, the petitioners requested that it be continued until next month's meeting.
So we should not take any action?
You should
Table
move to
it.
continue it to the next month's meeting.
Very good. Mr. Brown?
I move that we continue ordinance 2016-36 until the next meeting.
Mr. Clinker?
I will second.
Okay, that will be on the November 4th meeting. Apparently, those folks will get the thing straightened around that they want, and we'll have it then. Resolutions.
Resolution 2016-17, a resolution approving the Lincoln Neighborhood Livability Study Planning Document.
What's the pleasure of the council, Mr. Heidi?
Move to hear Resolution 2016-17.
Mrs. Williamson? Any comments prior to this presentation? Hearing none, go ahead, please.
Good evening, council. My name is Christy Sturts. I'm with Sturts Public Management Group. I own a planning company that was hired to develop the Lincoln Neighborhood Livability Study. Just wanted to give you a little overview, background of the purpose of the study, the reason we went about it. The Lafayette Transitional Housing Center is currently in the process of preparing a tax credit application that will include a request for permanent supportive housing, as well as will be developing the Solutions Beyond Shelter Engagement Center. This proposed location of this project is in between Lincoln and Salem and 12th and 13th Streets, which is included in the Lincoln neighborhood. This is a potential $12 million project that would be included in the area. And in order for the state of Indiana to really for them to score highly within a tax credit project, the state likes to see that a community has really looked at the surrounding area of where they're going to invest their dollars. And so that's when I was hired to come in and really take a comprehensive look at the neighborhood and provide recommendations for consideration by the council. As part of this process, we looked at the livability of the community. So when you think about livability, you think about a place where you can find housing that is safe and secure and affordable. You have transportation options, and you also have access to a variety of services that enable you to live as an independent person and succeed within your neighborhood. So within the study, we looked at three areas. We looked at housing, we looked at transportation, and we looked at live, work, play. As part of the process, I reviewed a number of the plans. You have a lot of plans that have already been done within your community. Also looked at demographic data for the neighborhood. Also conducted several stakeholder meetings and did a lot of driving around within the area. We've then come together with a number of recommendations for your consideration. Some of these recommendations are higher level recommendations that maybe have already come to light within other plans in their community, but I felt that they really were applicable to this neighborhood and should be highlighted. In addition, there are more tangible, specific improvements for the neighborhood within the recommendations. There is, as far as the general boundaries of the neighborhood, you're looking at Greenbush to the north, Union to the south.
Go slower, please.
I'm sorry. Greenbush to the north, Union to the south, Fannin Drive or the CSX Railroad to the west, and 15th Street to the east. This area has approximately 2,500 people within the population and approximately 1,100 households. Within this area, there are a number of multifamily housing developments, and approximately 60% of the households are non-family households or individuals. The median income for this area is approximately $23,000 a year in comparison to an average of $39,000 approximately for the city as a whole. Interestingly, this area, 37% of households do not have a vehicle within this area. And another interesting statistic, I couldn't find it for the neighborhood, but for the city as a whole, and this may be something you already know, but about 67.7% of renters in your community are considered housing burdened. And what that means is that they pay 30% or more of their income towards their housing costs. These are for renters. When you compare that to the state and to the nation, they are at about 50%. So I'm not sure what all the dynamics are, if it's some of the pressures from, being close to the university or whatnot, but I do think that housing cost is a concern within your community. When we look at the overall goals, in regards to housing, there are three overarching goals. The first two really have to do with solidifying the single-family housing within the existing neighborhood. And so those recommendations include investing in owner-occupied and renter-occupied rehabilitation of those existing homes. In addition, the recommendations are to look at the opportunities for new development that can include single-family housing. And this might be some kind of mixed development that has both market rate and affordable options. I know from talking to one of the stakeholders along 6th Street might be a decent area to consider for this, where the Hartford Hub has just been completed. And in addition, to support the permanent supportive housing and the Solutions Beyond Shelter Engagement Center, this will provide a single point of entry for a lot of the people that are in housing crisis within your community. And there are already a lot of other resources in that area that it makes good sense that is a location for consideration. In regards to transportation, a big picture bullet is looking at ways for 24-hour transportation for low-income individuals. I know that comes with a hefty price tag, and it isn't an easy solution for communities. I know, though, also from talking to a number of the stakeholders that deal with some of the issues that the low-income population is facing. For a lot of these individuals, when you have a 4% unemployment rate, it's not about access to jobs. You can get the jobs. It's about the ability to sustain that employment. And by not having good transportation, that can really impact that. A lot of lower income individuals that are starting are working third trick. And so, again, it presents kind of a dynamic that's a difficult one for any community to consider. Also, in regards to specific improvements, walkability is important for the neighborhood. We didn't do a comprehensive survey, but there are some strategic locations that investment could be important. One is along Salem Street. Salem is on the city bus route. There are segments that are great there. There are other segments that are not so great. And that could be really a good route for improvement, continuous improvement from one end of the neighborhood to the other. The other is along 6th Street. And again, this is because there's multifamily housing there, the new Hartford Hub, the new park, and so forth. Some of the other things, promoting health and wellness in the community. Another big picture element is just the overall mental health of the community. And this is a national problem, I know, but it's also been something that the IU has identified as a need and a number of the stakeholders have identified. Also, the potential of looking for a small grocery store. We looked at the walkability of the area to groceries. Now, there is a Payless and I forget the name of the other store that's on Greenbush.
Save-A-Lot.
Save-A-Lot. Yes, thank you. But, you know, from some areas, it's a good mile or so to get there. And if you don't have transportation in your carrying bags, it might be something to consider. In addition to that, support economic advancement for area residents. I was talking to Laura, the three key things that their director mentioned to help the people that go there is 24-hour transportation, as we mentioned, 24-hour childcare, and access to Wi-Fi. And so these are some of the other things that we've included in this area. And then finally, increased neighborhood supports and involvement. The existing neighborhood association is not in operations, not functional. It could be valuable for that community to get that back up and going. Increase opportunities for after school. Hartford Hub will be great for that, and that is something that the neighborhood identified that they are working on addressing. And then finally, you know, working with the community in regards to some of the crime prevention strategies, whether it's educating children and other types of activities. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for this person? We met with a representative of the, I guess, the Area Plan Commission, did we not, the members of the Common Council. Have you coordinated your work with them as to what they foresee in the Lincoln neighborhood?
We have. We've met with them, and we've also met with the Economic Development Department here. As we had our initial discussions, we decided that the purpose of the plan wasn't to redefine the land use, which is really under, you know, most of their purview, and we're in agreement to really concentrate on the livability of the area and some of those types of recommendations.
So this is a federal grant you're applying for, and you feel strongly that you're going to get it?
These ladies are the ones putting the application together. But I will say for the communities that I have been partner with them, that we've looked at the neighborhood in addition to everything else, it really provides a comprehensive package that the state finds appealing. So.
Mayor, what would Wi-Fi cost to supply that particular neighborhood? We have some Wi-Fi spots downtown with various areas.
Right, and that Wi-Fi is, mostly for people when they're outdoors. It doesn't have the strength to, and we wouldn't have the financial capacity to be competing in the private sector for indoor, but we continue to look at ways to supply that in the near downtown. But even that, not going to get into their bedrooms and their kitchens where they need to do homework and stuff like that. But we do have Wi-Fi at the Hartford Hub, and I think there are some programs through Infinity that could help with that in low to moderate income areas, and we'll certainly look at what the full recommendation for Wi-Fi is.
Good. Thank you, Mayor.
I
Any
think
questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any comments or questions by members of the audience? There being none, once again, the Common Council. No comments. If the clerk then would conduct a roll call vote on Resolution 2016-17.
Heidi,
Aye.
Clinker.
Aye.
Nargi.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Williamson.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Resolution passes 6-0.
Resolution 2016-18.
A resolution approving a waiver of noncompliance and finding compliance with Statement of Benefits, James Investments, LLC, DBA, Lafayette Auto Supply.
Mr. Heidi,
I move to hear Resolution 2016-18.
Second.
Mrs. Nargi, second. Any questions and comments by members of the Common Council? There being none, Mayor?
Mr. Cable, ladies and gentlemen, I'll keep my comments brief on this because we have been through it between caucus and everything numerous times. There's a mechanism within state law that allows us to grant a waiver of noncompliance for the James Group, Lafayette Auto Supply. There was a little bit of confusion on when they filling out those forms, and they are 3 days late getting that turned in. But as you know, they're a longtime Lafayette community, great corporate partner, made a great investment out there on Kepner Drive, and certainly doing everything that we were asking them to do. And so I would respectfully request that you grant this waiver of noncompliance and find them in compliance with their statement of benefits.
Thank you. Any questions of the mayor?
Mr. Campbell,
Yes, sir.
I would like to put on the record that the resolution that was passed last month is basically the same as this resolution, which is not a real problem, but it referenced the fact that you'd already had your public hearing. So this resolution is the correct final resolution because you can't approve the waiver until there is a public hearing, which you had earlier today. But in case somebody would look at last month's meeting and that resolution and this month's and say, why is it the same? I wanted to put on the record that that had that extra paragraph that belongs in today's resolution, but should not have been in last month, but doesn't.
So it's already amended as full,
Yeah,
ready to go?
It's correct
Okay.
now.
Any other comments or questions?
Just one, is there are filing 3 days late, is that the only source of noncompliance?
Yes, and it's a brand-new abatement, so even of the jobs and everything, they would have the 10-year time period. So yes, it's just a matter of time.
Thank you.
Any members of the audience wish to address this resolution and the abatement? There being none, once again, the city council, would the clerk conduct a roll call vote on resolution 2016-18?
Heidi.
Aye.
Clinker.
Aye.
Nargi.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Williamson.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Resolution passes 6-0.
I'd like to remind everyone, council members and the audience, that we will have a public hearing on the budget this Thursday in this room at 5 o'clock. Okay? Reports of standing committees. Reports of special committees. Reports of the mayor.
No, sir.
Any miscellaneous and new business to come before us? Any reports of councilmen? Coming for the time for public comment. I remind you, make your comments, limit them to 3 minutes, and we like to remain positive in our attitude toward those comments. Yes, sir.
Ta-da.
Lloyd Wells, 3717 Rawlings Drive. I'm back.
Good. Gone for 2 months.
Yes,
We checked the attendance on that.
yes. Well, I agree with the need for the infrastructure improvements and so forth on Sagamore Parkway and so forth. I think we have failed to take into consideration the impact it has on the small business in that area. I get the feeling sometimes that the idea is, oh well, everybody has to suck it up. Well, the entire city has to suck it up. But I agree that this project has to be done. It should have been done 20 years ago, but it wasn't, and so we do have to do it. And I agree that sacrifices have to be made. But it's not just the small businesses that have to make the sacrifices. I don't think it's proper to come and complain about something unless you have some sort of thought put into a resolution to the problem. And I believe that there are workable things that can, not on this project, the horse is out of the barn on this one, but on projects in the future that take more than 3 months' traffic away from a business. It would seem to me that had we had this project with them working around the clock instead of one shift during the day, that could have taken over half of that interference away from those businesses. And I think when we let contracts in the future, I think we need to think about that and look at ways that we can avoid having those people shut down for in 2.25 years on the north end of that project out there. And so that's unreasonable to ask somebody to suck that up without any compensation whatsoever. Let's look at it this way. These people have had to function on 50% of their income for that period, part of that period of time, or most of that period of time. Think about how much effect you would have as a council if you had to conduct your business on 50% of your income. 50% of your budget is just taken away. Could you do it? If you could do that, then I think it's okay to ask these people to do it. But until you can, I think you need to think twice before you ask businesses to absorb that much loss. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Any other comments from members of the audience? Mr. Heidi?
Move to adjourn.
Second. Mr.
Second.
Baker. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yep. Opposed, the same sign.